We're back in London for this Week 6 matchup between the Denver Broncos and the New York Jets. Can the Jets secure a win on the other side of the Atlantic, or will they lag behind these Broncos? We'll see in the simulation, but first, let's get behind the bar and make our drink, the Concorde. Well, we are well and truly in the thick of the international games now. This is the fourth one of the season, second game in London, really making me dig into my bag of English beverages for this series. Jets and Broncos have both already been featured before, but man, this combination was a real headache to come up with a matchup for. I'll cover that more in detail later on in this section, but first, let's meet our representative from New York, a cocktail that I just had to feature at some point for the Jets, the Aviation. Now, in addition to the name having a very strong connection to the Jets, obviously, this is another drink that comes to us out of New York City, specifically coming courtesy of our boy, Hugo Endscreen, and his 1916 cocktail book, Recipes for Mixed Drinks. This is a gin-based drink with maraschino liqueur, creme de violet, and lemon juice all accenting the gin and providing their own unique flavors. If you've ever seen this drink before, you know that it is incredibly visually striking. That creme de violet really comes through and creates this gorgeous lavender hue in the drink. However, despite the incredible things it does for this drink's appearance, historically, creme de violet was, as the professionals say, an absolute bitch to track down. It actually disappeared from the market entirely in the 1960s, only really coming back in sort of the late 2000s with this modern cocktail revival. As a result, that's led some people like Harry Craddock to develop aviation recipes that either omit completely or drastically scale back the amount of creme de violet in it, producing a drink that looks more visually similar to, say, a martini. Denver's contribution to this matchup, the Broncos Sunset, is another very visually striking drink, drawing inspiration from the blue and orange of their team's uniforms. Unlike the 100-something-plus-year-old Aviation, the Broncos Sunset is a very modern drink, coming to us in 2022 courtesy of Brian Dayton. This is a layered drink where blue curacao is added to a glass and then topped off with crushed ice, and then the rest of the ingredients in the drink are shaken up and very carefully poured over top of that crushed ice, creating two very distinct layers in the drink. Now, there's quite a few ingredients in this drink, and between the effort put into the layering and this laundry list of ingredients, I really feel for any bartender who has to make this drink on a regular basis. In addition to the blue curacao, we have tequila, Ancho Reyes chili liqueur, Aperol, Campari, orange juice, lemon juice, and simple syrup. But hey, I guess suffering is the price of beauty, and this is a very pretty drink. Now, our nod to the hosts of this matchup is Sloe Gin. Now, despite technically being a liqueur, this is actually the only liqueur that the EU allows to be called gin without needing to preface liqueur onto the end. So, identity crisis aside, what's actually in this bottle? This is a British liqueur made from gin and blackthorn fruits, aka sloes, which look a lot like blueberries but are actually relatives of plums. Traditionally, it's made by soaking those berries in a mixture of gin and sugar for at least 3 months, though modern commercial distilleries tend to just flavor a neutral grain spirit. Despite being a liqueur, this still comes in at a pretty healthy ABV, usually falling somewhere between 25% and 30%. This specific one right here is 26% ABV. Alright, so as I alluded to earlier, this was a real headache of a matchup to come up with the drink for. I certainly had no shortage of ingredients, but figuring out, which ones was I going to keep, what ratios was I going to do everything in, that part was really hard. I'm pretty happy with what I eventually settled with, but obviously I have not tried it yet, and I don't really have much faith in this drink being any good, but it should at least be very interesting. So hopefully that makes for good content. Yapping aside, let's get into it now. We are going to start off with 1 ounce of our Sloe Gin. This is a really nice spirit. It really does taste like plums. It's very sweet, but it's still got all of those sort of floral botanicals that you associate with gin. Highly recommend trying it out if you haven't had it before. Then 1 ounce of tequila. I'm using a Blanco tequila. I don't think you would really gain anything from using, an aged tequila in this drink. I think it's pretty much just there to give a little bit of extra punch, a little bit of extra flavor, a little bit of that agave maybe. Sort of tie into Denver as well. 1/2 ounce of our Ancho Reyes chili liqueur. I don't think there's really any other chili liqueur on the market, and this is specifically the Ancho one. They do have a verde liqueur as well, which would be interesting in this drink, but is not what it calls for. This really, I mean, it smells like Ancho chilies. It smells like I'm about to be making, oh my God, I'm blanking on the name of the dish right now. But like, it smells like I should be making Mexican food anytime you open that bottle up. Then half an ounce of Aperol. I am not a big Aperol fan, so we will see. Like this, literally that half ounce might have ruined this drink for me, but only one way to find out. You know, hopefully there's enough other ingredients that it doesn't be too bad. And then finally, 3/4 of an ounce of lemon juice. Add some acidity to this drink. Really counting on the Sloe Gin to be our sweetener because there is not a lot of sugar in this drink. And we're gonna shake that all up. There we go. Then strain that into our coupe glass. Ooh. Kind of a blood on the sand type color right there. And we're gonna garnish that with a maraschino cherry. This drink's name, I went back and forth on for a while. I wanted to do something, you know, because we have a jet and we have a game in London. So I was like, oh, some sort of like red eye. But red eye already exists. So I was like, okay, you know, transatlantic red eye maybe. But I was like, that's too many words. So I went back and forth on the name for a while. But what I eventually settled on, right, thinking about what are jets that have been across, you know, the ocean to Europe. You know, what's a famous one that could do that sort of trip? And I was like, the Concorde. So this is our Concorde. Give it a try. Oh. Okay. It's a spicy drink. That chili liqueur punches through it. Ooh. Ooh, yes. Okay. This is kind of what I was hoping for. This is that kind of really interesting, really out there mixture that I was hoping this drink would deliver on. Oh my God. All right, hold on. I need some time to process this. It's the perfect sweetness level. I mean, there's no syrups added to this drink, but because we only have sort of one true base spirit in the tequila, and it's a relatively small amount, right? Like all of these other drinks have, or all these other spirits have various levels of sugar in them. The sweetness is actually really well balanced. And the plum notes that you get from that Sloe Gin, they play really well with the spice from that chili liqueur. And the Aperol is mild enough, you know. Like, I think if you used a Campari in this drink, it would be too biting. I think if you really like bitter flavors, you could probably get away with using a Campari instead, because it'll deliver more of that punch. But for me personally, I think it'd be too much. Wow, it's just, oh my God, I need another sip. It's like, it does a very interesting thing where you can almost, you know, you talk about the taste map on your tongue of, you know, different parts of the tongue are better suited for different flavors. And that's, you can actually almost feel it in this drink where it's like, and it'd be funny if I'm being completely wrong about where those zones theoretically are, but the sweetness kind of runs like on the tip of your tongue and like down the middle. And then you get the sort of, you know, spicy notes from the chili liqueur on the outside of your tongue. And it's almost like you can feel this drink in 3 dimensions. That's probably the craziest thing I've ever said about a cocktail. But this is really interesting. This is actually really good. I was prepared for this to be basically like a, you know, mad science experiment where like it wasn't good, but it was at least, you know, good for the plot. This is actually just really good. I would absolutely, like, if I ordered this on a menu, I would be very happy with my order. Wow. All right. Well, with this wonderful drink in hand,
Let's get into the simulation.
Kicking off this game nice and early here in London, the Jets get the ball first at their own 26-yard line, and these Jets certainly aren't lagged, as Breece Hall's first rush of the day goes for 32 yards, putting them in Broncos territory within the first minute. The offense slows a little bit after that big play, but they still manage to pay off the strong start with a short pass TD. The Broncos' opening drive also starts strong, but the Jets' defense corners and chases Bo Nix down on third down, forcing the Broncos to settle for the field goal. The Jets go to the air in the second quarter, as Fields sends this ball supersonic, connecting with Allen Lazard for a 47-yard touchdown to extend the lead to 2 scores. After the defense forces a 3-and-out, the offense chews clock all the way down to the 2-minute warning before Breece Hall goes airborne to punch it in from the 1. Unfortunately for the Jets, on the Broncos' very first play, Nix delivers a perfectly placed strike to Troy Franklin, who hot-foots it 75 yards to the end zone, cutting New York's lead to 11, making it 21-10 at the half. Starting off the second half, the Broncos only need a single play again, this time as Marvin Mims shakes Sauce Gardner off him before turning and taking this one in for a 70-yard TD, and all of a sudden it's a one-score game. The Broncos go for 2, trying to cut New York's lead to a field goal, but Evan Engram runs right out of bounds. Jets' lead stays at 5. Honestly, the Jets' offense just ran out of fuel, going scoreless through the third quarter. On the Broncos' following drive, Nix gets blown up as he throws this pass on third down. The Broncos elect to attempt the 51-yarder and hit it, cutting the Jets' lead to 2. Trying desperately to make something happen in the fourth quarter, Fields scrambles, gets strip-sacked for his trouble, and the Broncos scoop and score, putting them back in the lead. Later on in the fourth, the Jets drive all the way to the red zone, but a huge third down sack pushes them back 10 yards and forces them to settle for their first field goal of the game as they are unable to retake the lead. Their defense manages a weak stop, getting the Jets the ball back with 38 seconds left with over 80 yards to go. They then immediately mismanage the clock, and as a kind of cosmic fuck you to this team, Justin Fields' Hail Mary attempt is picked off. Denver wins in London 26-24. Oh yeah, no, this is a Jets game right here. It honestly reminded me a lot of their Monday night game against the Dolphins in week 4. I know they didn't get out to such a big lead in that one, but the way they came out of the gate super hot before imploding felt so on brand for this team. Now in Justin Fields' defense, he didn't have too bad of a game. That interception was a true Hail Mary, fuck it, chuck it throw, and he put up 2 touchdowns, if only on 155 yards. The problem is that Bo Nix had an essentially perfect game. He's technically 0.4 points short of a perfect passer rating, but 250 yards on 10 catches, only 13 attempts, is some really impressive efficiency. Obviously, that efficiency was made possible by the Jets secondary allowing those 2 huge bombs on either side of halftime. Now we know that Aaron Glenn loves to run the ball, which the Jets actually did really well this game, making it even more insane that they lost. Breece Hall had his best game since January 2024, putting up 123 yards on 17 carries, plus a touchdown for good measure. Justin Fields also did his part, adding 86 yards on 12 rushes, though that fumble honestly probably lost them this game. Especially so when you realize that the Broncos really couldn't run the ball at all. J.K. Dobbins only managing a sad 32 yards on 14 carries. The receiving sheet was pretty bare this game on account of all the limited passing from both quarterbacks. Allen Lazard leading all receiving with 4 catches for 45 yards and a TD, though Marvin Mims had a similar performance, turning 3 receptions into 82 yards and a touchdown. Lower down, we see the very funny Troy Franklin stat line of 1 catch for a 75-yard touchdown. Courtland Sutton honestly is the big loser from this game, managing only a single catch for 14 yards. Now the Monte Carlo sim is not usually high on quarterbacks, but in this case it sees Justin Fields breaking 200 yards, something relatively rare in this sim. Breece Hall comes down to earth with a still respectable 52 yards, while Denver gets the rookie RJ Harvey involved, which pays off for about 54 yards. Also, Garrett Wilson and Courtland Sutton both see nice boosts over their Madden performances, as befitting of wide receiver 1s. The sim has quite a spread on scores for this game, and though the most common score is a 14-14 tie, a 21-14 Jets victory is essentially equally likely. As a result, it should be no surprise that the overall average skews slightly towards New York, predicting a 19-17 final score. Do you agree with the simulations, or do you envision a different future? I'm looking forward to hearing your thoughts down in the comments. As a reminder, our drink for this matchup is the spicy and complex Concorde. If you make it, please let me know what you think, and I'd love to hear your suggestions for what drink should be your team's representative. Stay curious, stay thirsty, and I'll see you in the next one.